I thought the party for my husband's 40th birthday would save us. Then he played the recording. It was my voice confessing to an affair I never had. The room went dead silent until my son stood up. He did not defend me. He looked straight at his father and said, "Don't be dramatic. Mom, we live only once." That was the moment I realized I was not a wife or a mother anymore. I was a target. My name is Mara Ellis, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought my biggest problem was the catering bill for my husband's 40th birthday party. We were at the Vane, one of the most expensive restaurants in Pittsburgh, surrounded by 30 of our closest friends and family. The chandeliers were too bright. The laughter was too loud. I stood by the head of the table, smiling until my cheeks hurt, waiting for Gavin to blow out the candles. He did not blow them out. Instead, Gavin tapped his spoon against his wine glass. The sharp sound cut through the chatter. He pulled out his phone and connected it to the Bluetooth speaker system we had rented for the background jazz. "I have a special toast," Gavin said, his voice smooth, almost affectionate. "To the truth." He pressed play. My voice filled the private dining room. It was undeniable. It was my pitch, my cadence, my slightly raspy tone from years of managing construction sites. I can't stand him anymore. The voice on the speaker said, "Gavin is boring. I need something real. The sex with you is it's different." The recording stopped. A projector I did not know he had set up flashed an image onto the cream-colored wall. It was a screenshot of a text message chain. The contact name was Client, Mark, and the texts were filthy. I stood frozen. My hands turned to ice. For a second, I thought I was having a stroke. I looked at the faces around the table. My mother-in-law covered her mouth. My best friend, Dana, looked down at her plate. "Gavin," I whispered. "What is this?" "You tell me, Mara," he said. He looked devastated. He looked like the perfect victim. I listened to the echo of the recording in my head. It sounded exactly like me, except for one tiny thing. The voice on the tape had said the word schedule with a hard K sound, like schedule. I had never pronounced it that way in my 38 years of life. I said schedule, always. It was a habit I picked up from my Canadian grandmother. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but a chair scraped against the floor. Logan stood up. "My son, my beautiful 19-year-old boy." He was wearing the suit I had bought him last week. He looked at me, and his eyes were completely empty. There was no confusion in them, only boredom. "I saw you texting him," Logan said. His voice was flat. Don't bother lying. It's pathetic." My heart stopped beating. "Logan, honey, look at me. You know that's not true. I saw the messages." "Mom," he said, shrugging. Gavin placed a hand on Logan's shoulder. It was a fatherly, protective gesture. "I just wanted the truth. We live only once, right, son?" "Yeah." Logan muttered. I stepped toward them. I needed to grab my son. I needed to shake him awake. "Logan, please, listen to me." I reached for his arm. Logan jerked away from me as if I were contagious. "Mom, stop," he snapped. Don't be so dramatic." "You got caught." The room turned against me instantly. The shock had worn off, replaced by judgment. I saw a colleague of Gavin's lift his phone. The red recording light was blinking. He was filming this. My humiliation was being documented for the cloud. "Get out," Gavin said softly. "Just go." "Mara." I looked at my husband. I looked at the boy I had raised alone for 13 years before Gavin ever showed up. They stood shoulder to shoulder, a united front of masculinity and righteousness. I did not scream. I did not flip the table. I turned around and walked toward the heavy oak doors. As I passed them, I heard Logan lean in toward his stepfather. It was a whisper, meant only for Gavin, but the adrenaline had sharpened my hearing. "I told you," Logan whispered. "Just YOLO and it's done." I walked out into the cool Pittsburgh night. The valet brought my car around, looking at me with concern because I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my ticket. I got into the driver's seat and locked the doors. I did not start the engine. I pulled out my phone. The video was already circulating on a local group chat. I played the audio clip again. I listened to the breathing patterns. I listened to the pause between sentences. I need something real. The hesitation was too calculated. The breath was too clean. And then that word again, schedule. Tears pricked my eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were cold, hard tears of clarity. That was not a recording of me. It was a synthesis, a deep fake. And my son had not just witnessed my execution. He had helped build the scaffold. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the restaurant, watching the red taillights of the guests leaving the party that was supposed to celebrate my husband. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles had turned white. To understand why the betrayal in that dining room felt like a physical dismemberment, you have to understand who I was before tonight. I am a creature of structure. As the operations manager at Hawthorne and Brick Studio, a boutique interior design firm here in the city, my entire life is built on blueprints, load-bearing walls, and precise schedules. I do not like surprises. I like safety. For 38 years, I believed that if you built a foundation strong enough, the house would not fall. Logan was the first foundation I ever poured. He is my son from a relationship that ended before he was old enough to remember his father's face. For years, it was just the two of us against the world. I worked double shifts to pay for his braces. I skipped lunches to afford his soccer cleats. He was my struggle, but he was also my greatest victory. When he looked at me with those wide, trusting eyes, I felt like I had done something right in a chaotic world. Then came Gavin. He walked into our lives 5 years ago, when Logan was 13. Gavin was everything I was not charming, relaxed, and seemingly endless in his patience. He was 40 when we met, a man who seemed to have figured life out. He knew exactly what to say to a tired single mother. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Mara, he had told me on our 3rd date, family first. That is my rule. We got married 2 years later. In his wedding vows, Gavin promised to love me, but he also made a separate vow to Logan. He promised to be the father figure my son had been missing. I remember crying that day, thinking that finally, I could put down the heavy shield I had been carrying for over a decade. I thought I had found a partner, but the shift happened slowly. So slowly I did not see the rot until it had eaten through the wood. About 2 years ago, Logan hit 17 and then 18. He entered that dangerous age where boys think they are men but still think like children. He became impulsive. He started hating the rules I had set to keep him safe. He became obsessed with the concept of freedom, constantly repeating a phrase he saw online. "We live only once," he would say when I told him to study. Gavin did not help me reinforce the boundaries. Instead, he started buying Logan's affection. It started with small things. Gavin would slip Logan a $20 bill when I said no to an allowance increase. Then it escalated. I remember coming home one Friday to find them on the patio. Gavin handed Logan a beer. "He's 19. Mara," Gavin had said with that easy, dismissive smile. "Let the kid live. It's just one beer." When I objected, I became the enemy. In my own house, I morphed into the villain. I was the buzzkill. I was the one who made everything stressful. Gavin became the cool friend, the conspirator who understood that life was meant to be enjoyed, not managed. "Mom, you're so uptight." Logan had told me last month when I asked about his college applications. "Gavin says you need to learn to let go." I watched them grow closer, forming a boys' club that explicitly excluded me. They had inside jokes. They would stop talking when I entered the room. I felt a cold draft in my marriage, but I told myself it was just a phase. I told myself Gavin was just trying to bond with his stepson, that this was what male bonding looked like. I used to lie awake at night wondering, Am I losing my son to this man? I worried that Gavin was turning Logan into a spoiled brat. I worried that I was losing my authority as a mother, but in my darkest nightmares, I never imagined the truth. I never imagined that I wasn't just losing them individually. I never imagined they were actively working together to destroy me. I looked at the dark dashboard of my car. The phrase Logan had whispered to Gavin echoed in my mind. Just YOLO and it's done. They did not just bond over beer and video games, they bonded over my destruction, and tonight they had decided it was time to pull the trigger. I drove home in silence, the hum of the tires on the asphalt the only sound keeping me tethered to reality. When I walked into my house, it felt like entering a crime scene where the body had already been removed. It was too quiet. I went straight to my home office. I needed to check our finances to see the damage before the sun came up. I opened my laptop, but the screen did not welcome me with my usual desktop icons. It was logged out. I typed in my password, my fingers trembling slightly. When the browser opened, the history was empty. Everything had been wiped clean. It was a digital sterilization, the kind of thorough scrubbing that suggests premeditation, not a glitch. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Logan. I am staying at a friend's place for a few days. No explanation, no apology, no mom. Just a cold statement of fact. I stared at the screen, waiting for the tears to come. But my eyes remained dry. A second later, an email notification popped up. It was from Gavin. The subject line was simply, "Regarding tonight." I opened it. "Mara, I am sorry I had to do it that way, but you gave me no choice. I am staying at a hotel to give you space to pack. Do not make a scene. You have a reputation at Hawthorne and Brick to think about. Let us handle this like adults." It was a soft threat wrapped in fake civility. He was using my career, the thing I had built brick by brick, as a weapon to silence me. I ignored the email and logged into our joint bank account. I scrolled through the transaction history, my eyes scanning for irregularities. There it was. A withdrawal from last week. $6,800. The transaction label was simply retreat. The memory hit me hard. A few months ago, Gavin had joked about a fast-track wealth-building seminar run by some local networking group. He had called it an investment in himself. I remembered Logan sitting at the dinner table, looking at Gavin with adoration and saying, "That sounds cool. Only losers play it safe." I had laughed it off then. I was not laughing now. That money was not for a seminar. It was the funding for my destruction. I picked up my phone and dialed Dana. It was nearly 1 a.m, but she answered on the second ring. "Mara, I am so sorry. I didn't know what to do at the restaurant." "Stop," I said, my voice steady. "I need your IT brain. Dana, not your sympathy. I need you to tell me how to find a hidden app on a phone." I put her on speaker and followed her instructions, navigating through the system folders of my smartphone. It took 10 minutes, but we found it. Buried deep in a subfolder that looked like a system utility file was a third-party recording application and a subscription to a cloud-based voice training service. "Oh my God," Dana whispered, her voice cracking over the line. "Mara, this technology. It takes samples of your voice to create a text-to-speech model. They built a puppet of you. Thank you, Dana," I said. I hung up before I could crumble. The next morning, I did something that would seem insane to an outsider. I did not go to a lawyer first. I went to a clinic. I requested a full panel screening for sexually transmitted diseases. I sat in the sterile waiting room, surrounded by old magazines, feeling absolutely nothing. I knew I had not cheated, but I also knew how these narratives worked. If Gavin was painting me as a promiscuous adulterer, he might try to claim I had endangered his health, or perhaps, in his newfound freedom, he had exposed me to something. When the results came back negative later that day, I let out a breath I had been holding for 12 hours, but the relief was instantly replaced by a chill that ran down my spine, The negative result confirmed that the texts, the recording, the accusations were all pure fiction. There was no affair. There was only a script. That night, as I sat in the dark living room, my phone lit up with a notification from our neighborhood community app. It was a post from an anonymous account, but I knew exactly who was behind it. The video from the restaurant was there. The caption was short and brutal. She got caught. I watched the view count tick upward. 12 views, 50 views, 100 views. My neighbors, the people I waved to while watering the lawn, were watching my humiliation. I set the phone down on the coffee table. I did not panic. I did not scream. I realized then that Gavin and Logan thought this was the end of the story. They thought they had won. But as I looked at the glowing screen in the dark room, I knew the truth. This was not the end. The real war had just begun. The next morning, my dining room table became a command center. Dana sat opposite me, her fingers flying across her laptop keyboard as she dissected the audio file that had ruined my reputation. She did not look at me with pity anymore. She looked at the screen with the focused intensity of a surgeon. "Got it," Dana said, turning the laptop toward me. "The metadata on the audio file is messy. They tried to scrub it, but amateur hour. The source file was exported from a text-to-speech app called Voice Mimic. And look at the device ID." I leaned in. The device was listed as Logan's iPad Pro. My stomach dropped. I remembered 2 weeks ago when Gavin had asked to borrow Logan's tablet. He had told me his laptop was updating and he needed to finish some slides for a presentation. I had watched him sit on the sofa, typing away, thinking he was working hard for our future. He was actually engineering my demise. "Check the location history," I said, my voice sounding hollow in my own ears. Dana typed for a few seconds. "Okay." During the week, Gavin said he was at that leadership retreat in the woods. The device was logging into Google services from an IP address in downtown Pittsburgh, the Omni William Penn Hotel. He had not been at a retreat. He had been 20 minutes away, likely orchestrating this entire charade. I did not wait. I drove straight to the office of Evelyn Carr, a family law attorney known for being ruthless. Evelyn did not offer me tea or tissues. She sat behind her mahogany desk and listened to my story without blinking. "Stop crying, Mara," Evelyn said sharply. "Tears are for the funeral. This is a war." "We need to secure your assets before he drains them." "What do?" I asked. "Change every password. Banking, email, social media, and move your share of the funds. Now." I left her office and went straight to the bank. I opened a new account solely in my name. I transferred exactly 50% of the checking and savings balance from our joint account. Not a penny more, not a penny less. I wanted the paper trail to show I was equitable, not vindictive. Then, I froze the supplementary credit cards. Logan's allowance card was the first to go. By noon, I had hired Miles Rourke. Miles was a former corporate security officer who specialized in fraud. He did not look like a movie detective. He looked like a tired accountant in a gray suit, which made him perfect. "I need to know everything," I told him as we sat in his nondescript office. "Who she is, where the money went, everything." 2 days later, Miles called me, "Mrs. Ellis." "We have a complication," Miles said, his voice dropping an octave. "I ran a credit check on you. Did you apply for a consumer loan of $25,000 last month?" "No," I whispered, gripping the phone. "Absolutely not." "Well, someone did, and they used your social security number and a digital signature. The funds were dispersed to an account I don't recognize." My blood ran cold. This was not just infidelity. This was identity theft. I hung up and ran to the filing cabinet in my home office. I dug through the papers Gavin had handed me over the last few months. I could hear his voice echoing in my mind. "Just sign this, honey. It's for tax purposes. Just sign this. It's for the insurance update." I found a document from 3 weeks ago. It was a loan application. The signature at the bottom was mine. But it was too perfect. It lacked the slight jagged edge on the letter M that I always made when I was rushing. It was a trace. I sat on the floor surrounded by files. The urge to scream climbed up my throat, threatening to shatter the windows, but I swallowed it down. Screaming would alert them. Screaming would make me look unstable, exactly how they wanted to paint me. Instead, I pulled out a fresh notebook. I picked up a pen, October 4th, 2:30 in the afternoon. Discovery of fraudulent loan. I started writing. I logged the time. I logged the discovery. I logged the IP addresses Dana had found. I realized then that smart revenge does not start with a confrontation. It starts with paperwork, and I was going to bury them in it. The photos Miles slid across the table were grainy, taken with a long-range lens, but the faces were unmistakable. My husband was sitting on a park bench in the Strip district, but he was not alone. Beside him sat a woman who looked like a sharper, younger version of everything I used to be. Her name is Sienna Vale, Miles said, his voice low and professional. 33 years old. She is a sales consultant for Ridgewell Therapeutics. She and your husband have been meeting twice a week for 3 months. I stared at the image. Sienna was laughing, her hand resting casually on Gavin's knee. But the next photo made my blood run cold. They were not just flirting. Gavin was handing her a thick manila envelope. In return, Sienna leaned in close, her lips almost touching his ear. Miles had managed to get close enough to catch a snippet of their conversation with a directional microphone. He handed over the envelope. Miles explained, and she said, "Your wife won't even see it coming." Then she laughed. I felt a wave of nausea. This was not a crime of passion. It was a conspiracy. In the final photo of the set, Gavin handed Sienna a cheap prepaid smartphone. I looked at the timestamp on the bottom of the photo. It was taken yesterday at 4 in the afternoon. I checked my own logs. At 4:05 in the afternoon, my personal email account had flagged a login attempt from a new device. Sienna was not just the mistress, she was the operator. Gavin was outsourcing the harassment to her so he could keep his hands clean. But the knife twisted deeper when I went home to confront the digital evidence regarding my son. I logged into the family administrative account, the one I used to monitor Logan's internet usage before he turned 18. I found a secondary email address linked to his profile, one I did not recognize. I accessed the inbox. There, sitting in the sent folder, was a confirmation email for a voice mimic free trial. The date was exactly 7 days before the party. My mind flashed back to last week. Logan had come into the kitchen while I was cooking dinner. He had held out his phone, looking like the sweet boy I used to know. "Mom," he had said, "I need a favor for a media project at school. Can you record yourself reading this paragraph? I need a clear female voice." I had wiped my hands on a dish towel and smiled at him. I was so happy he was including me in his life. I took the phone and read the paragraph. I enunciated every word clearly. I poured my love into that recording, thinking I was helping him get an A in his class. I was actually helping him frame me. I sat back in my chair, the room spinning. I needed to be sure. I needed to know the extent of his involvement. I texted Miles and asked if he had any intercepts between Gavin and Logan. A minute later, an image popped up on my phone. It was a screenshot of a text message sent from Gavin to Logan the morning after the birthday party. "Good job last night." The text read, "Proud of you." I put the phone down on the desk. A sound escaped my throat, a ragged gasp that felt like something breaking inside my chest. It was not the affair that killed me. It was this. Gavin had not just cheated on me. He had groomed my son. He had turned Logan into an accomplice, teaching him that destroying a woman was a bonding activity for men. Miles sent one final follow-up email. He had tracked the expenses for the so-called retreat. The charges were for a luxury suite at a hotel in Cleveland. The guest list included Gavin Ellis and Sienna Vale, but the credit card on file, it was mine. The card ended in 4189. I had paid $3,000 to fund the romantic getaway where they likely planned the final stages of my destruction. I stood up and walked to the window. The tears were gone. In their place was a cold, terrifying resolve. I was done mourning the marriage. I was done wondering where I went wrong. Gavin wanted a war. Logan wanted to play grown-up games. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. You want to play? Let's play. I was not just going to divorce Gavin. I was going to dismantle the entire network that had turned my son into a monster. They had underestimated me because I was quiet. They forgot that the person who builds the house knows exactly where to pull the beam to make the whole thing collapse. Evelyn Carr did not waste time. By 9 o'clock on Monday morning, she had filed an emergency motion for a temporary financial restraining order. It was a legal tourniquet designed to stop the bleeding. Gavin could no longer open new lines of credit in my name, nor could he drain the remaining equity from our home without a judge asking him very uncomfortable questions. He is going to panic when his cards get declined, Evelyn told me over the phone. Let him panic. Mistakes happen in the margins of panic. While Evelyn secured the perimeter, Dana fortified the center. She arrived at my house with a thick binder. Inside was a technical forensic report that dismantled the audio recording frame by digital frame. She showed me the spectrogram analysis. See these flat lines? Dana pointed to a jagged graph. Human breath has natural variation. This doesn't. It's a loop. And the timestamp on the file creation matches the login from the hotel, not the time of the alleged party. It is admissible proof of fabrication. I took the binder. It felt heavy, like a shield. I spent the rest of the afternoon securing my physical space. I did not run around throwing his clothes onto the lawn. That is what a hysterical woman does, and I was done playing that role. Instead, I called a locksmith. I changed every tumbler in the house. I installed 3 high-definition cameras, one at the front door, one in the garage, and one specifically pointed at the door of my home office. I opened the wall safe and removed our birth certificates, the deed to the house, and my passport. I moved them to a safety deposit box across town. Then, I made the move that would hurt him the most. I wrote a formal letter to the Human Resources Department of Northbridge Med Supply. I did not accuse Gavin of anything yet. I simply issued a spoliation notice, a formal request to preserve all emails, device logs, and expense reports regarding Gavin Ellis due to pending litigation involving identity theft and financial fraud. Gavin came to the house at 6 in the evening. He tried his key in the lock, and when it did not turn, he banged on the door. I watched him on the new monitor in my kitchen. He looked annoyed, not remorseful. I opened the door but left the security chain on. What is this? Mara, he asked, gesturing to the lock. I just want to talk. We need to de-escalate this. The locks stay, I said. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Fine. I just need to get some files from the office. For work? I let him in, but I did not follow him. I watched the feed on my phone. He went straight to my office door. He tried the handle. It was locked. He jiggled it violently, then kicked the bottom of the door in frustration. He was not looking for work files. He was looking for the evidence he hoped I had not found yet. He came back to the living room, his face red. You locked the office, he asked. You want a paper war. Gavin, I asked. My voice deadly quiet. I have one. He stared at me, realizing for the first time that the woman who used to make his coffee was gone. He left without another word. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. You are trying too hard. A female voice purred. It was sweet, condescending, and sickeningly familiar. It was Sienna. Excuse me, I asked. You should just let go, she said. Gavin is unhappy. A man needs to breathe. You are suffocating him with all this desperate clinging. Men need freedom. My hand tightened on the phone. The audacity was breathtaking. She was calling the woman she helped rob to give relationship advice. Thank you for the advice, Sienna, I said, my tone flat. I am going to give him his freedom. I am going to give him all the freedom the penal code allows. I hung up. I sat down at my dining table and opened a fresh red folder. I placed Dana's report inside. I added the loan application with the forged signature. I added the photos Miles had taken. I added the log of Logan's voice software subscription. This was my red file. It was enough to bury them all, but I did not release it. Not yet. I closed the folder and smoothed the cover. I was not interested in a skirmish. I was waiting for the perfect moment to drop the bomb so that when the dust settled, there would be nothing left of their lies. I asked Logan to meet me at the Silver Spoon, a greasy spoon diner on the edge of town where the syrup is too sweet and the coffee is too strong. It was our spot. When he was 7 and his father missed a visitation weekend, I would bring him here for chocolate chip pancakes. I wanted to remind him, without saying a word, that we had a history that predated Gavin. We were a team long before we were a family of 3. Logan slid into the booth opposite me. He did not order pancakes. He did not even take off his jacket. He looked at me with a mixture of annoyance and pity, an expression he had clearly practiced in the mirror. Whatever you are planning. Mom, it is useless, Logan said, crossing his arms. Gavin told me everything. He says you are trying to control everyone because you can't handle him being happy. I looked at my son. He was 19 years old, legally an adult, but sitting there, he looked like a toddler in a man's costume. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I simply reached into my bag and pulled out a single file folder. I slid it across the sticky table. Open it, I said. He rolled his eyes but flipped the cover open. Inside was the forensic report Dana had compiled. It showed the IP addresses, the device ID of his tablet, and the timestamp of the recording creation. But the centerpiece was the screenshot of the confirmation email for the voice mimic trial subscription, sent to Logan eprivate@gmail.com. I know you helped him, I said softly. I know you recorded me. I know you sent him the file. Logan stared at the paper, his face flushed a deep, blotchy red. He started to speak, stopped, and then looked away. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he mumbled. It was just a joke. Gavin said it would be a funny prank to scare you. A prank, I asked. You accused your mother of infidelity in front of 30 people. That is not a prank, Logan. That is an execution. He slammed the folder shut. God, you are so dramatic. This is exactly what Gavin talks about. You take everything so seriously. I just wanted the house to be fun for once. You always have rules. Don't drink. Don't stay out late. Save your money. Gavin understands me. He gets that we don't have to be miserable all the time. The waiter came by to pour coffee, but I waved him away. I needed to ask the question that had been keeping me awake for 3 nights. What did he promise you I asked? Because people don't betray their mothers for free. What was the price? Logan. He refused to meet my eyes. He picked at the vinyl seat cushion. He said he'd help me get that vintage Mustang, Logan said, his voice quiet. And he set up an investment account for me. He said if I helped him get through this rough patch with you, we could finally live a cool life. Without all the nagging, I felt a physical blow to my chest, harder than any physical strike. My son had sold my dignity for a used car and a promise of easy money. He had traded 18 years of my sacrifice for a shortcut to being cool. So that is what I am worth to you, I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to steady it. A car. You betrayed me to buy a feeling of being spoiled. Logan's head snapped up. The guilt in his eyes was instantly replaced by defensive anger. He stood up, knocking the table with his thighs. Stop trying to make me feel bad, he shouted, drawing stares from the other patrons. It's your fault he wants to leave. You're exhausting. He stepped out of the booth and looked down at me. We live only once. Mom. He sneered. You are on your own. He turned and walked out of the diner, the bell on the door jingling cheerfully as he left. I sat there for a long time. I did not run after him. I did not beg him to come back. I realized in that moment that loving my son did not mean I had to let him break me. He had made his choice. He had chosen the easy lie over the hard truth. I signaled the waiter for the check. I paid for the coffee neither of us drank, and for the first time in my life, I accepted that saving my family was no longer the goal. Surviving them was. Gavin did not stop at humiliating me socially. He decided to burn the ground I walked on professionally. On Tuesday morning, 3 of my biggest clients at Hawthorne and Brick Studio received emails from a generic address. The emails were vague but damaging, hinting that I was under investigation for embezzlement and struggling with substance abuse. They were designed to make me radioactive. I was summoned to the office of the managing partner, Sarah Brick. She looked at me over her spectacles, a printed copy of the email on her desk. "Mara, I don't want to believe this," Sarah said, tapping the paper. "But in our line of work, trust is currency." "What is going on?" I did not apologize. I did not break down. I opened my briefcase and laid out the police report regarding identity theft and the affidavit from my doctor proving I was clean. "My husband is attempting to leverage my career to force a divorce settlement," I said calmly. "This is harassment. I am already working with legal counsel to trace the IP address of this sender. I would appreciate it if the firm would flag these as malicious spam and allow me to do my job." Sarah looked at the documents, then back at me. "Okay, handle it. Mara, just keep the noise down." I walked out of her office with my head high, but my hands were shaking. Gavin was trying to starve me out. He wanted me unemployed and desperate so I would sign whatever separation agreement he put in front of me. That afternoon, the attacks shifted from professional to personal. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was Sienna. Attached was a video file. I hesitated before pressing play. The video was shaky, filmed on a phone. It showed Logan sitting on a couch, laughing. He held a beer in his hand. "My mom is just—" "She is impossible," Logan said in the video, slurring his words slightly. "She acts like a saint. But she is miserable. I honestly hope Gavin takes everything. She deserves nothing." The video ended. Then came a text from Sienna. "He hates you. Mara, just sign the house over and we will stop releasing the tapes. Don't make the boy go to court." I felt a sharp pain in my chest, but I forced myself to breathe. They were using my son as a human shield. They thought I would surrender to protect Logan's image. They were wrong. I called Miles. "Tell me you have something." I said, "I have more than something," Miles replied, his voice crackling with excitement. I dug into Sienna Vale. This isn't her first rodeo. She was named in 2 civil lawsuits in Ohio 3 years ago. The charge, fraudulent investment consulting. She targets married men, convinces them to invest in shell companies, and then vanishes. "And Gavin?" I asked. "He is the latest mark," Miles said. "That $25,000 loan he took out in your name. He didn't spend it on a car or a vacation. He signed a contract transferring it to Vale Ventures LLC. He thinks he is investing in a startup. He actually just handed her the cash." "And Logan?" I asked, dreading the answer. "His name is on the witness line as the signatory witness," Miles said softly. "He knew. Mara. He watched Gavin sign your money away." I hung up. The picture was complete. Gavin was not just a cheater. He was a fool being played by a con artist, and he had dragged our son into the mud with him. I did not hesitate. I scanned the loan documents, the forensic report on the forgery, and the details of the fraudulent transfer. I sent the entire package to the fraud department of our bank and copied the financial crimes division of the local police. I was not doing this out of spite anymore. I was doing it to cut off the oxygen. At 2:13 in the morning, my phone lit up on the nightstand. It was a text from Logan. "Mom, don't do it. Please don't report the money. Gavin finds out. He will hate me." I stared at the glowing screen in the darkness. That single sentence unraveled everything. Logan was not the cool, rebellious adult he pretended to be. He was a terrified child. He had helped destroy me, not because he hated me, but because he was desperate for Gavin's approval. He was terrified that if the money disappeared, the affection would disappear too. I did not reply. I realized then that I could not save Logan by being soft. I had to show him that the man he idolized was made of straw. I got out of bed and went to my desk. I drafted 2 emails. The first was to Evelyn, instructing her to file the evidence of financial fraud in family court. The second was to the ethics committee at Northbridge Med Supply, attaching the police report number regarding their employee, Gavin Ellis. I hovered my finger over the send button. You want to live only once, I whispered to the empty room. Fine. Let's make it count. I pressed send. The war was no longer private. It was total. The fallout from my email to Northbridge Med Supply was immediate and catastrophic. By Wednesday morning, the Human Resources Department had issued a formal summons for Gavin to appear at an ethics hearing regarding the misuse of company assets and potential fraud. The corporate machine does not care about family drama. It cares about liability, and I had just made Gavin a massive liability. According to the timeline I later reconstructed, Gavin did not handle this with grace. He panicked. He called Logan to his hotel room in downtown Pittsburgh. He did not invite my son over for room service or video games. He summoned him like a subordinate. Logan told me later that the room smelled like stale sweat and anxiety. Gavin was pacing the floor, his tie undone, the charming facade completely stripped away to reveal a terrified, desperate man. You have to help me, buddy, Gavin had said, shoving a notepad and pen into Logan's hands. I need you to write a statement. You need to say your mom that she is unstable. Say she made up the loan. Say she is jealous. Logan hesitated. For 2 years. He had looked at Gavin and seen a hero, a man who lived by the rule of cool. Now, he looked at Gavin and saw a man who was asking a 19-year-old boy to commit perjury to save his own skin. But, Gavin, the bank already has the signature, Logan had stammered. If I lie, I could get in trouble too. Don't be stupid, Gavin snapped, slamming his hand on the desk. We live only once. Remember, do you want that car or not? Write the damn statement while Gavin was bullying my son. I received a notification from the bank. The fraud department had formally frozen the $25,000 loan. They confirmed that the digital signature did not match my biometric profile and that the case was being referred to federal investigators. The noose was tightening. Miles called me at noon. He had intercepted a text exchange between Gavin and Sienna. They are getting desperate, Mara, Miles said. They discussed hiring a locksmith to change the codes on your house while you are at work tomorrow. They want to physically lock you out before the court hearing on Friday. I did not let that happen. I went to the courthouse and filed for an emergency temporary restraining order based on the threat of illegal eviction and financial harassment. The judge signed it within the hour. When Gavin showed up at the house that evening, skulking around to the garage to see if my car was there, he was not met by a locksmith. He was met by a squad car. I watched from the window as the officer handed Gavin the paperwork. Gavin tried to use his charm, flashing that winning smile. But the officer just pointed to the street. You need to step away from the property, sir. The officer said loud enough for me to hear. If you return within 500 feet, you will be arrested. Gavin got into his car and drove away, humiliated in front of the neighbors he had tried to turn against me. That night, the house was silent, but my phone was not. At 11 o'clock, a message came through from Logan. It was just an audio file, no text, no explanation. I pressed play. It was a recording taken inside the hotel room, likely while Logan was in the bathroom or pretending to be asleep. The audio was clear. It was Gavin talking to Sienna on speakerphone. The boy is dragging his feet. Gavin's voice sneered. He is scared. Just promise him the car again. Sienna's voice replied, sounding bored. He is an idiot, Gavin. He will believe anything. I know, Gavin said, and I could hear the cruelty in his tone. The kid is just a tool. Once we get the settlement, once it's done, he's on his own. I'm not raising another man's mistake. The recording ended. I sat there in the dark, my heart breaking for my son. Logan had heard that. He had recorded it. The mantra, "you only live once," had been twisted into a leash to control him, and now the leash had snapped. He finally realized that the man he betrayed his mother for saw him as nothing more than a disposable mistake. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the living room, dressed in my best suit, waiting for the sun to rise. The hearing was tomorrow. I was not shaking anymore. I was not afraid. I had the bank records. I had the police report. And now, I had the truth about how they broke my son. I was not going into that courtroom to win Gavin back. I was not even going there to destroy him, though that would happen as a byproduct. I was going there to salvage the wreckage of my life and show my son what real strength looked like. The time for games was over. The time for judgment had arrived. The mediation room was sterile, smelling faintly of lemon polish and stale coffee. Gavin sat across the wide mahogany table, flanked by a lawyer who looked far too expensive for a man currently under investigation for fraud. Gavin looked confident. He adjusted his tie and smiled at the mediator, playing the role of the aggrieved husband to perfection. "My wife is... she is unstable," Gavin said, his voice smooth. "She has been having an affair, which I have documented. She has also poisoned my stepson against me. I just want what is fair. I want half the house and a settlement for the emotional distress." I sat perfectly still. My hands were folded on the table. Beside me, Evelyn Carr cleared her throat. She did not speak. She simply slid the red file across the table. "Mr. Ellis," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through the air like a scalpel. "Before you continue, you should review this forensic analysis. It proves that the audio recording you played at the birthday party was a digital fabrication created using voice mimic software. We have the IP logs, the device ID from Logan's tablet, and the timestamp of creation." Gavin froze. His smile faltered. That is ridiculous," he stammered. "Is it?" I asked. I pulled out the second document. "This is a report from the bank regarding a loan for $25,000 taken out in my name. The digital signature is a forgery. The funds were transferred to Vale Ventures, a shell company linked to your mistress, Sienna Vale. The bank has already forwarded this file to the district attorney." The color drained from Gavin's face. He looked at his lawyer, but his lawyer was busy reading the documents with a look of horror. Then, the final domino fell. Gavin's phone buzzed on the table. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. "You should answer that," I said softly. "It is Human Resources at Northbridge Med Supply. They are calling to inform you that you have been suspended indefinitely pending an investigation into corporate theft and data misuse." Gavin snatched the phone up, read the screen, and then slammed it down. He turned frantically to Logan, who was sitting in the corner of the room, staring at the floor. Logan Gavin barked. Tell them your mother is lying. Tell them about her boyfriend." Logan stood up. For the first time in months, he did not look at me with contempt. He looked at Gavin, and I saw the realization wash over him. He saw Gavin not as a cool mentor, but as a drowning man trying to use a teenager as a life raft. "It is fake," Logan said, his voice shaking. "The recording, I helped him make it. He told me it was just a prank to scare Mom into being less strict." I gave him the voice memo. The room went dead silent. The mediator stopped typing. I looked at my son. I did not scream. I did not cry. I asked the question that had been burning a hole in my heart since the night at the diner. "Logan," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "you sold me." For how much? Logan crumbled. He sank back into the chair, burying his face in his hands. "He promised me a Mustang." Logan sobbed, the sound raw and ugly. He said, if we got the money, we would have a cool life, a free life. He said, YOLO! Gavin stood up, his face twisted in rage. "You useless idiot. You can't even do one simple thing right." That outburst sealed his fate. The mediator signaled for security. The next hour was a blur of legalities. Gavin lost everything. The settlement was heavily weighted in my favor to cover the fraud. He was facing criminal charges for identity theft and a civil suit for defamation. He left the room alone, his career in ruins, his mistress already ghosting him, and his freedom in jeopardy. Logan sat in the hallway, waiting for me. He looked small. He looked like the little boy who used to eat pancakes with me on Sunday mornings. "Mom," he whispered. "I am so sorry." I looked at him. I loved him more than life itself, but I knew that love alone could not fix this. "We are going to get you a therapist." "Logan," I said firmly, "and you are going to get a job to pay back every cent of the legal fees caused by your lies. I am your mother, but I am not your victim anymore." I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun. The air tasted sweet. I pulled out my phone and sent Logan a text message, even though he was just a few feet behind me. I wanted him to read it and keep it. Mom is still your mom, but trust must be earned. I got into my car and drove away. I was alone, but I was free. I had taken back my name, my finances, and my dignity. And as I merged onto the highway, I realized that Gavin was wrong. We do not live only once. We live every single day, and we have to choose who we want to be every morning. Today, I chose to be the woman who survived. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from, so please leave a comment down below and share your thoughts on the ending. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Mia Revenge Stories channel, hit that like button, and smash the hype button so more people can hear this story. See you in the next video.